Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Duane Long is here, and we are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you're on any of these, please subscribe, please like, please join on. That makes things much better for us with our bosses. We're going to answer all your questions today, so keep them fired up in the comment section. Duane and I have a bunch to go over. First, Duane, it is warm, but it is rainy.
It's Columbus. It's our reality, Dan. You have to deal with it too.
I was up in the rain taking my kid to practice this morning. It was not enjoyable, but what was enjoyable was the NFL draft. Next year's draft could be even more enjoyable. We'll talk about that. But first, let's get to some recruiting information that is hot and heavy, courtesy of the Dean, Bill Kurlick. A name we haven't discussed quite as much recently. Bill has now flipped a crystal ball for John Walker from Kissimmee, Florida, a big old defensive tackle. Down to 4 schools, it looks like. Central Florida, actually the local school, is making a nice run at him. Alabama has offered. There's some others in there. Michigan. Your thoughts on John Walker? Kind of I don't say it's an upset to bring him into the mix, but hasn't been one of the main names we've discussed, but does definitely have the size and pedigree to be a guy in the middle.
Oh yeah, he's a big kid, and he plays like a defensive tackle. He understands. He's not trying to be a defensive end. He's a big square kid. Having size in the middle of the line, it really helps. Having a big kid plays very aggressively. Has that motor that you absolutely must have. Defensive linemen, more than any other players on the field, I think, have to show that motor that they're going to go and go and go. So there's a lot to like about him. Glad to hear about it. I want to take some time and break down his tape further. I don't know if I remember him having a junior tape up. That may be only a sophomore tape that I've seen. I'm not sure about that. Don't hold me to that. But I want to take another look at him, break it down a little bit further now that we're absolutely sure about where we are with him.
Staying on the recruiting track, let's talk running back. We know we have Mark Fletcher in the fold. We know Cedric Baxter will not be in the fold. We know Richard Young is a prime target out of Lehigh Acres in Florida. But another big-time target, and Bill brought us this information, or redoubled it yesterday, is Justice Haynes, son of Veron Haynes, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Georgia resident. He is going to be visiting in the weekend of June 24th to the 26th. I'm reading here. He has official visits scheduled to Georgia, USC, and Alabama, but will visit Ohio State last. Here is what is really interesting about Justice Haynes that I don't think I've ever heard before, and that most guys, when you hear are professional baseball prospects that are that are pitchers, are usually quarterbacks. Justice Haynes is left-handed and throws a 94-mile-per-hour fastball. Now, that's very rare to be a left-handed pitcher, and my guess is he's the best athlete playing pitcher in the United States. Your thoughts on Justice Haynes as a prospect and the idea that he could be a major league prospect as well?
Oh, I love this. Here's the thing. We got 4 bell cow backs in this class. You don't see 4 bell cow backs. You get 1 or 2, that's good. 3 is great. I can't remember last time I've seen 4. Well, he's one of them. Richard Young is one, Cedric Baxter's one, and just for someone's going to be interested, the 4th would be Reuben Owens, who is at the top of the composite, number 1. Yeah. Those 4 guys, I can't remember last time I seen 4 bell cow backs. We've seen none more often than we've seen 4. So this is great news. We're still in it for Richard Young. Don't like Wilt Fong throwing up a crystal ball for him. The only guy I have more faith in is Bill, the dean. But this is huge
And
news,
it's almost
Dwayne.
like Steve's crystal ball for Young went to Alabama.
Yes, I should have made that clear. So that is we still are in it for him. He hadn't made a commitment yet. People are like, okay, the crystal ball. Well, we're in trouble. Well, probably not where we were a month ago, but we're still in it until he commits. We're not going to worry about it. We'll stay on him. But getting Justice Haynes in here, that's the fourth guy. And and then we've got Fletcher in, Dan, and that kid, I'm telling you, he's in the composite. I think he's seventh or eighth, and 247 has him the other. Either those two right in there. I got him in maybe number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a big time back coming in here. That he's a great runner. But trying to get one of those 4, that would just put the icing on the cake. And Haynes is just getting them last. That's huge. So often you watch a recruitment, and it comes down to who that player put in for his last visit. That's going to be the one he's freshest on. So you get excited about that because landing him would be huge.
He does have another option, though. Keep this in mind. A left-handed pitcher who throws 94 that runs a 4.4, sub 4.4. I'm not sure how many of those exist. He may be the only person in the United States with that athletic profile that can pitch like that. So he's going to have a chance to be a millionaire day one. So I imagine NIL may pop up in this one. We will see. NIL will definitely pop up when it comes to discussing wide receiver recruiting. We're going to talk more about the NFL draft after the break, but Ohio State did very little to damage its reputation as wide receiver U. Apparently, others are paying attention. We've told you all about Carnell Tate from Florida and Brandon Inniss from Florida. Inniss told us yesterday he was planning on visiting during over Thanksgiving. He's moved it up to June 17th. That's a major move forward. It's to get his dad on campus with him. As you guys well know, you usually need a parent visit to kind of check that one box at the end. Brandon Inniss is a very, very good receiver. Your thoughts on the quest for Mr. Inniss?
It's very important to keep this thing going. Tate is my number 1, and Inniss is my number 2 in the wide receivers in the country this year. Obviously we want both of those guys. And Inniss moving it up, as you said, that's important. And bringing a parent, that is a check the box. The parent signing off is usually a really good sign that that player, just him bringing his dad says that he's serious about this. He's not going to be dragging his dad all over the country to everywhere he wants to visit. Having a parent there is huge. And that he's moved it up says he may be tiring of the process. He's going to put his favorite schools at the top of the list, take those visits sooner, and be ready to commit before the season and have recruiting over with. It's just something to get excited about, Buckeye Nation. This kid, he is special.
He's a big-time receiver. I mean, obviously, Ohio State is going to be – they're almost to the point now where they're selecting, not recruiting receivers, and that's a fantastic thing. We are going to take a quick break now. So those of you who are listening to the podcast, we're going to take a quick break. For those of you watching, you miss nothing. All right, we are back. We're going to talk some NFL draft. Obviously, the past draft was tremendous. Seeing Garrett Wilson go number 10, Chris Olave 11, Jameson Williams 12 was kind of a cool run and did nothing, as I said earlier, to damage Brian Hartline's legendary status. I do think next year's draft is going to be a lot more interesting for this reason. If you take the top of this year's draft, no quarterbacks, and it wasn't really star-studded, Duane. There were some really good players in it, but I think us draft geeks know the strength of the draft was like rounds 3 through 5. That's not going to be the case this year. I'm just going to read you some names. I think you could make an argument that all of these guys would have been top 10 picks. Think about this. Just at quarterback, C.J. Stroud, our very own. Dane Brugler told you this last week. And anybody who checks out a mock draft, for the most part, he is projected to go number 1. He is the Vegas favorite to go number 1. Yes, Aiden Hutchinson and Travon Walker were nice prospects this year. You can disagree with this, Duane. I don't think either one is Will Anderson from Alabama. Bryce Young, the quarterback from Alabama. Let's move to defensive back. You've got Keely Ringo out of Georgia. Brian Brzee, a defensive tackle out of Clemson. Jalen Carter, a defensive tackle out of Georgia. Bijan Robinson would have been the top running back in this draft. Miles Murphy, a defensive end from Clemson. Michael Meyer, the tight end from Notre Dame, would have been the top tight end in this class. And then think about this, people. I have seen a mock draft that has C.J. Stroud at number 1, Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 5, and Paris Johnson Jr. at number 11. Paris Johnson Jr. is actually 5th or 6th in odds to go number 1 in the draft. Duane, what are your expectations for next year's draft? And I imagine it's going to be a very strong PR campaign for your Buckeyes.
Absolutely, it's going to be, because I had Stroud number 1 since the Heisman ceremony. They had him on just standing side by side, he and Bryce Young, and the difference in size was pretty surprising. C.J. Stroud looks like a legitimate, NFL size quarterback, and Young just doesn't. He's a smaller guy. He's a shorter guy. He's a player. He's going to go probably top 5, but I think C.J. Stroud is clearly the pick. Now, as far as this year versus next year, those names you mentioned, absolutely, they're going in front of everybody. We've talked about what a poor quarterback draft it was. It was a poor draft in general. I mean, after about the 3rd round, I was starting to lose interest. I'm like, who's this guy? Who's that guy? Just a bunch of guys that you didn't really know. It's just a poor class overall. Next year is going to be a whole lot more interesting. A lot more Buckeyes, right there at the top. I absolutely believe C.J. Stroud is the leader in the clubhouse for the number 1 pick. So it's going to be a lot more fun next year.
It also helps that Ohio State arguably has, if you look at it, they're going to have the top quarterback picked. They may have the top wide receiver picked. They may have the top tackle picked. And that is just incredible for recruiting. We're going to take some questions here, and here's one I expected to come, and we will hammer it. Jordan Addison leaving the University of Pittsburgh for more money. Do you think Ohio State players could possibly leave for better free agent deals? Let's address this situation here. Jordan Addison. Those who do not have Jackson Smith-Njigba as the number 1 returning wide receiver in college football, they have Jordan Addison there. I believe he won the Biletnikoff last year and threw up some crazy numbers catching the ball from Pickett. I don't know why his first name escapes me here. The one quarterback who was picked in the 1st round, number 20. He has announced he's into the portal, and then it was a bidding war between USC and Texas. I have not checked. I believe that's going to be answered today. And then the question really from Andre Martin is, could you see this happening at Ohio State? Anything is possible. When you start to talk about money, anything is possible. But I would be really surprised if Ohio State loses a guy to a competitor for a similar opportunity here, meaning someone like Jackson Smith-Njigba, for example, going back to Texas for millions of dollars. I just don't see that happening. Duane, am I being naive?
No, I don't think you are. I think that we are getting too caught up in the money issue. I have come around to believe that, it is going to be a thing. We got to deal with that. Right now, NIL and the transfer portal are just the wild, wild west. Yeah, they're going to have to tweak these things. It's not working the way it is. It's just freewheeling, and all kinds of things are going on that you don't want. College coaches are complaining about it right now. They're saying, "Look, we're getting in bidding wars over players. It's this is not good. What's going on?" So I think that they're going to try to tweak it, at least try to, whether they can or not. It's this is a free market country. Uh, how they're going to regulate it, I don't know. It does need regulating. There's no doubt about it. Just letting the schools throw out whatever they want to players, this is not good. Nobody can tell me it's a good thing for college football. We'll see what's going to happen. But I think really players are going to go. They're still thinking about the NFL. That is their primary focus, is on the NFL. I don't think that this is going to stop being wide receiver university. I don't think this is going to stop being cornerback university, because in the end, it's about going to the NFL and making really big money. Both those things. So I think we're going to still get the kids that make the difference. The 5-star kids are still going to be looking this way.
I completely agree with that. Um, I think I might have a little bit of a different opinion on the NIL and the money in general, but just put this into context. Denzel Ward, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, Andrew Norwell, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas. These are guys just off the top of my head made a fortune in the NFL, way more than you can make in college. Not even close. Those guys have made generational wealth. And when you go to college to see what you can do for a living. That's the goal. There are people like Mr. Bucknuts who only see Ohio State players as what they do here and then don't pay attention. But when you go to recruit an Ohio State level kid, you better be telling them, I mean, now it's the NIL, but you better be telling him how you're going to get into the NFL to make some real money. That's what he deserves to hear. So I don't think that's changed at all. And my feeling on the NIL, and as far as everyone getting all this money, here's what I'll say. The money is obviously there. These companies and foundations are not going bankrupt giving these kids money. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. Like you said, I guess it needs to be regulated. I don't think this is going to have a negative effect on Ohio State, which is really my number one goal. Then my goal is college football in general. But I think a little bit of it is overrated right now just because it's so spectacular to watch. But I don't think fans really care how much the guys get. Like I said, if this money is being doled out now, it didn't come out of nowhere. These people have always had the money. These boosters and these donors, man, they are loaded. And so if some of the money has to go to the kids, I don't have as big a problem with it as the other people. I guess it's shady behind closed doors. I can't believe it's more shady than some of the stuff I heard when it was no NIL. So we will see, and we will keep an eye on it. It certainly provided more content for us, and it's been very interesting. Duane, Manny Ja, who I believe was in Portugal, which is fantastic. Why do you think Haskell Garrett went undrafted?
We've been talking about this on the message boards. We don't know how he fell that far to not even be drafted. That's just, I don't know. I have no explanation for that. Here's the one thing that I would throw out there. We don't know the medical. We've got a coach that guards medical information like our country guards Fort Knox. He just we're not getting information about how players are doing as far as injuries are concerned. It doesn't happen right in front of us on the field. We've got no idea. That's the only thing I can think. I cannot believe that he didn't do well in interviews. That he did so bad that he fell out of the equation. He's got size. He's had had an impact when he was here. I don't know. I cannot explain that.
Jack Edits and a couple others. What is our situation on Carnell Tate? They're in the mix. He is going to take all of his visits. I remain confident, let's just say, that they'll get him. Tate is one of those guys who kind of is a good example of what we were discussing. I mean, he has commented that he's not actually being offered $3 million. That's been reported elsewhere, but he is a guy that's going to have to decide how much he wants in NIL money up front. If Ohio State isn't presenting him that big of an opportunity, hypothetically, you could see a school like Tennessee writing a much bigger check. But if Carnell Tate wants to make generational wealth and wants to go to Ohio State University, or I call wide receiver U, I think we know where he'll end up. But one to watch for sure. Whatever rules put in place will be bent by those that don't care. So you'll continue to wonder who plays by the rules and who doesn't. I think I would agree with that. Sue wants to know about Richard Young. He's taking his visits. He's scheduled his one to Ohio State for June. He will be here. We are going to need to make a serious impression on him. It is not good, as Duane mentioned earlier, that Steve Wiltfong has crystal balled him to Alabama. Let's see here. Any more questions? Justice Haynes. We discussed him earlier in the show. He's visiting June 24th to the 26th. He's an interesting cat, and that he's a running back who was also a left-handed pitcher that throws 94 miles per hour, and his dad was an NFL player. So they're going to make their own decisions. That is for sure. All right. Duane. Last question for you. Let's see if we can find one here. Why aren't we recruiting Western Pennsylvania more? Rodney Gallagher, one of the best receivers in the country right now, right around the Pittsburgh area. Duane, you want to take that one? I've not heard of Rodney Gallagher, but it's not very easy to be recruited at Ohio State as a receiver right now. Bryson Rogers was considered underrated. Then we looked at him and we thought he was a 5-star. Your thoughts?
Well, I would echo what you're saying there. We are Ohio State. We pretty much are selecting receivers now. We're letting guys that want to come to Ohio State. We're picking and choosing. I'm not familiar with this athlete. Take a look at him after we get off the air and offer an opinion. Dijon Johnson, who we got last week, he committed last week, I think. That kid, I looked at his film and I said, why is he ranked so low? He was like number 29. This kid's easily a top 10 cornerback. So maybe he's just getting overlooked. I'll take a look at him, and I'll put some comment in the podcast thread about what I think about him.
I tell you what, we're to the point, especially at receiver, where you should just take faith in Brian Hartline. As much as I like the fact that people look at our rankings and take them as gospel, Brian Hartline does not. And when Mark Porter looked at Bryson Rogers, who's a 3-star, he called me immediately and said, this guy is a 5-star guaranteed. That shouldn't surprise you if Brian Hartline was the guy who made the call. I would trust Brian Hartline's eye over virtually anybody at this point. The kicker situation is interesting. One of them will be out, and Parker Lewis is in. So keep it locked in here for that. Very interesting situation with Noah Ruggles. Dave Biddle's been all over that. So we will have more on that later today. Raiola update. This is Dylan Raiola, the quarterback, number 1 in 2024. I don't think anything's really changed. There's some people who believe he's a silent commitment. I'm not sure I'd go that far. But I will say that I'm very confident that Dylan Raiola ends up as a Buckeye. Jack Edits bringing the noise, Duane. Brandon Innes was just crystal balled to Ohio State. So there's your live coverage, people. I'm not sure who did the crystal balling, but we can only hope it was Bill Kurlick or Steve Wiltfong. We will go check that out. We appreciate Duane stopping by. We appreciate all you guys being here. Once again, give us a like, Give us a subscribe. Give us whatever you need to help us with our bosses so we can bring you more award-winning content. Have a good one, Bucknutters.